is here. After a year of trying to start this, I can finally launch the first episode of the Into the Chat podcast. My first episode, my guest is Jonathan Burt. He is a functional health coach, specialises in bloodwork and breathwork, and all those things that come along with it, like gut health, nutrition, mindset and stress. So I really hope you enjoy the first episode, and just before you go to watch it, please subscribe to it, and at the end of the episode, please like it.
We'll start off that event, how we first met. That was the most bizarre space for me to ever taught yoga in.
It was a bit wild. There were chicken wandering around and goats in the corner.
Yeah, I've never teaching yoga, and a lot of people, it was like a lot of the men that were there, it was their first time doing yoga, and they were there on desk sheets, towels, and then the chickens running around amongst everyone. It was cold. That was so bizarre.
It was in July.
Was it?
7th of July.
I was trying to work out when it actually was.
It was a Sunday, the 7th of July.
So how did you get into so where does your Instagram, Incremental Health, where does that come from? Where did it start? Explain where it sort of came from and the basis of it.
It all really happened accidentally. So, I was an engineer. And like I said to you this morning, 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes I'd spend driving. So I just smashing podcasts. It started in I'd always done the yo-yo dieting thing, before we went on holidays and all that stuff. We've all been there. And then it was 2020, I started spending a lot of time driving because of my job. So I said 4 or 5 hours a day sometimes, just podcasts, just out of interest really. I never thought then I'm going to be a coach or I'm going to do this or do that. I was just interested.
Yeah.
Listening to the radio and the news and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Get bored of listening to music sometimes. It was 2018 I really started my sort of health journey, but it was 2020 it really took off.
Yeah.
But it just happened organically because all the stuff I was learning, started applying it to myself, seeing massive change. And then I just sort of realised I know enough now to help other people with it. And
so
I almost
you
feel
probably
responsible.
did similar to me. Did you sort of naturally start to educate people? And then I found I was sort of naturally educating people because I was implementing things. I was very similar, got into podcasts, got into reading, I'm obsessed with books. And once I started to pick up on stuff, I knew how I could help people. And then people were also starting to come to me because they saw that I was making the changes and posting about them online. And
it's slightly different for me. Similar, but slightly different. So a big part of it for me was my parents. They're my greatest teachers, but in an indirect way. So my father's for 30 years, diabetes, blood pressure, heart issues, chronic fatigue, all this pain, barely get up off a settee, in a bad way. And that's not to pity him because it's most of the adult population in the UK and the Western world are dealing with it.
Yeah.
Those big things the blood pressure, diabetes, the weight problems, but then that also leads then into cognitive decline, the cancers and everything else. But at this time when I started smashing all these podcasts, I took, because of his history, I took a massive interest in the cholesterol, blood sugar, diabetes side of it.
Yeah.
And you know that thing where you can tell someone something, but unless it applies to them, they can feel it or they can see it for themselves. It doesn't really register.
Yeah.
Well, although it wasn't happening directly to me, I'd learn all this stuff about, how processed food and how, fat isn't the enemy and how we've got cholesterol so wrong. And I was learning all this stuff. Then I was going home and something I'd learned that day in a podcast, I'd look at my father and what I've learned is right because I can see it playing out in front of me.
Yeah.
So although it wasn't happening to me, I had a physical representation in front of me that I could see that these things I was learning were right because I was watching it happen to somebody.
Yeah.
And then I was really excited because this person who, you know, means a lot to me has been dealing with these things for 25, 30 years and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. I now have the tools and the knowledge to help this person. But you probably know you just can't teach or help family, especially if they've raised you from a baby.
Yeah.
And now you're going on about all this health stuff. And it's hard.
And a generational thing too.
Yeah, absolutely. With that, like if you're not a doctor and you haven't been to uni, you're not wearing a white coat, then like, what do you know, kind of thing. So as I was learning all this stuff and seeing it playing out in my parents, and mainly my father, it just reinforced into me that like what I was learning was right. But that was a big part of it for me, was I had somebody in front of me that I wanted to help. I knew I could help, but they weren't open to it. And I tried the like good cop, bad cop. I tried the silent treatment. I tried the shouting, screaming, shaming. Like I tried every like
every avenue
I could to try and get through.
Yeah.
And like you just have to accept that if somebody else isn't open to it, like you can only lead a horse to water, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Another sort of topic I got, you know, really passionate about was the environmental toxins side of it. So the dust, the fumes, the smells, anything that's, you know, in our environment that's not really good for us. And like throughout all this time, I absolutely loved my job. Like I was an engineer fixing diggers, engines, and all that sort of stuff. I loved it. So like, although I didn't dislike the act of what I'd done, the overall sort of picture and the places I was working meant that I was falling out of love with it. Like I never had this moment, oh, be a coach or for the financial side of it or anything like that. There's all these avenues of me learning loads of things, enough to think, well, I know enough to help people now. The people I really want to help aren't open to it. But there's millions of people out there who are open to it, but are then being given terrible advice, whether that's conventionally or even from the, you know, alternative holistic world. There's some terrible advice there as well.
Yeah, there is. That's a huge topic.
So I was like, I've learned all this stuff. I want to help people. The people I want to help are not really open to it. So I'm falling out of love with the environment I'm in. But I was just thinking, do I want to slave away for somebody else for the next 40 years of my life? When I've got this burning desire that like I should be doing something else to help people. And you'll probably be familiar with this, but it's that saying of like, you're ready for change when the pain of change is easier than the pain of staying the same.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. It was like, I think everything in life's a choice, and everything in life will carry some form of regret. Even not doing something is a choice. So I was like, for me personally, the regret of like potential regret of trying it and it not working is easier to take than me always wondering, oh, if I had only tried that when I was 30.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was all those roads. It was the learning stuff, the family stuff, and then realizing that. Because I think even from a conventional standpoint, right, we say whether it's weight loss, diabetes, or whatever, there's a lot of onus put on the individual. You know, if they're not making progress or they're not getting better, the individual isn't taking the advice or isn't taking medications or isn't doing what they've been asked.
Yeah.
But what I've found is most people are trying. They are following the advice that they're given, whether that's from government, schools, like doctors, online, whatever. A lot of people are actually trying.
Yeah.
But they're just following bad advice.
Yeah, they're not getting the right advice for them in
like
particular.
The food pyramid, for example, you know, if you're following that, it's a one-way ticket to disaster. So like a lot of people are actually following the advice. So I was like, I need to put my passion and what I've learned into the people who are actually trying but need better advice.
Yeah.
And then just
and are willing to invest in it as well.
Yeah, which that's another big thing, is like the priority side of it. Those roads lying to me going, I've just got to pull the pin and try it while I can. And here we are, like over a year later. It feels like it was weeks ago.
Yeah. It's so difficult when you are in those environments. Like, for example, as you know, I've just quit my job, my full-time job, which I need to pay my bills to be able to live in my house because I'm my own sole provider. But now I've been able to have a small bit of time off. That's when I've started recording the podcast, because I've got time to get everything together. And it's so hard to have like a job and then try and invest it on something you're passionate about, because I find the job takes so much time and energy, and then you need to put a lot of your energy in what you're passionate about, but it's taken away by the full-time job.
Yeah, that was a massive thing for me. And if I'd done it again, I'd probably do it differently. Because you hit the nail on the head, and I'm glad you said time and energy, because I planned on building my coaching and my business as I was working. But I just found it was more the energy thing for me rather than the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'd have a really good weekend. I'd be out with people, grounding, walking mountains, like cold dips, waterfalls, all that sort of stuff. I'd feel amazing on a Sunday afternoon. I'd be like, I'm not going to let my environment bug me tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'd end up being like out in the dust and the smells and stuff all day. And then when I got home, I'd just be like, I'm relieved now to be out of that environment. And I wasn't doing anything on my personal stuff after work, and that's
hard though, so hard.
Yeah, and I never expected it to be easy, but it's been harder and slower than I thought.
So let's get on to I feel what is your main topic of blood work, because you kind of, when I met you, I didn't actually have a great deal of knowledge on blood work. And I definitely think since sort of we've connected and I've seen stuff you've posted and we have lots of conversations, my knowledge on blood work and the importance of it and what it actually does, I think a lot of people don't actually know the depth of blood work and what it entails, what it can bring, and what it can do for your overall health. Like, for example, I never forget that one time. Obviously, most people know now that I suffer from alopecia, and you'd messaged me. I'd said when I was losing my eyebrows, and you'll probably know. Well, you'll be able to reiterate it better than I did, or than I can. But you'd said like, oh, there's something to do with blood work that's in your thyroid that is linked to that, and I was just like it just blows my mind. So let's get into that. You know your shit about it. Well, so would you want to start with it?
I'll start by saying I am not an expert on this stuff. Like, I learn from the clever people on this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't discovered any
You're an expert to me.
I'm just an expert in regurgitating stuff I've learned from very clever people.
Which is the health trade.
Yeah. So I spent, I done my first sort of blood test in like 2021. And I've sort of done them every 6 months since. And like I said, started around the cholesterol, metabolic health type stuff. And now more as I do it as a sort of the functional health stuff, is like the whole body thing. It's just incredible value for money. Like, and it's not cheap, but it's value for money. Because doing your blood work is like scanning a barcode for your body. Like, you go to Tesco's and you pick anything off any shelf and you scan it on that machine, and that machine knows exactly what it is because of the unique barcode. And doing your blood work is like scanning the barcode for your body. And especially, it's not to say everyone has to do it for every scenario, right? Like, you can get healthier without doing blood work. It's not about you, like, health being a monopoly. I'm a big proponent of most of the things are free.
Yeah.
The sunlight, the grounding, the cold exposure, all that stuff. But most people are experiencing things that either they are aware of and they just don't know what to do about it, or these things has been normalized by society or the conventional system. Gut issues, digestive issues, skin issues is a big one, energy, mood, fatigue, like all these things people think are normal because they're common.
Yeah.
And nutrient deficiencies, like fat digestion, protein digestion, like hydration status, like the healthier blood cells, your immune system, like all this stuff can be discovered from one good blood test.
Yeah.
Without blood work, it's almost guesswork.
Yeah, that would make sense, yeah.
And where I see is most important is, when you're doing tailored plans for people, whether that's nutrition, even like your exercise plan could be influenced by what you see in blood work, but mainly nutrition and supplementation. without knowing what state your body's currently in, you can't really be certain on you giving your body the things that you need.
It needs, yeah.
And you'll hear me talk about the term like functional blood work, and the word functional is thrown around everywhere now. Yeah, movement, breathing, health, medicine, blood work, like everywhere. But I think to encapsulate that functional term is like doing something in alignment with the body,
Yeah.
with how the body's meant to be. I think a big barrier people have, right, with doing blood work is we have a health service that's not free. We pay taxes for it.
But it is free.
A lot of them. But so I think people are almost, they put this barrier up to paying for private blood testing because they believe they should have access to it free. And I agree with them. Like,
Yeah.
a good functional blood test, like the one I use, is £200, and that tests like 55 different things. For how much money the system wastes on issues that could be controlled by lifestyle, I don't think it's silly to say that the system should pay for people to have a good blood test once every couple of years.
Yeah.
But they don't. So people are almost like, why should I pay for something I should get for free? But then the problem is, like, you go to the doctors with a problem, they might do a blood test, but there might be like 3 things on there that's giving you, I'll use thyroid for an example, because this is very big in young females. If you think you've got thyroid problems, you go to the doctors, they might test TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, and T4. You might know what they are, but even just from a thyroid perspective, without knowing what your T3 is, which is like your main active hormone, and then your antibodies, like just having those 2 basic markers is not really giving you a big enough picture. But then just on this thyroid thing, without knowing what the liver's doing, what the blood cells are doing, what your nutrient status is doing, like your B vitamins, your magnesiums and stuff, without knowing these other things, you can't really paint the picture.
Yeah. And then they'll just chuck you on some medication.
Yeah. And it's like, you might find out what your thyroid levels are, but then you don't really know what's influencing that because you don't know anything else. So that's where the functional blood work stuff comes out there, is let's check as many things as we can for a reasonable cost. Because I could design a blood test as £1,000. It'd be the best blood test in the world.
Yeah.
It's just not viable for most people. So for around the £200 mark, you can get one which is covering like 55, 60 different things, from kidney, liver, vitamins, minerals, iron, cholesterol, thyroid, sex hormones, red blood cells, white blood cells. And that's enough to have like, a good full body view.
Yeah.
So you might have a hormone issue or a thyroid problem or an iron issue, but then you can also see all the other things that are potentially like involved in that pattern. So that's part of the functional blood work stuff, is test as many things as we can for a reasonable amount of money to get the best picture. When we talk about functional blood work, we're looking at the ranges for what's the optimal range, like what's the perfect range for this age person, this gender person. Because some markers, not all, will vary between men and women, not just hormones, but other stuff as well. But the functional blood work is looking at it from what's perfect, and like, let's go from there. But the conventional system do it the complete opposite. They look at it from a sick care standpoint.
Okay.
So they base their ranges on what's average. If you take out the people like us who are privately doing it, the labs that process the results, they work out their ranges based on what's average.
Right, okay.
So if, say, 1,000 people go, get blood tested, they take those results and go, right, what's the most common results for each marker?
Okay.
There's like over 80% of adults show at least one sign, or usually more than one sign, of poor metabolic health. Most people who get blood tested, it's reactively, whereas we're doing it proactively. Like, we don't really feel like, there's something really wrong. Well, like, let's just kind of have a check, see what's going on. Whereas the conventional system do it reactively. So somebody's gone to the doctors
because
with a problem,
right, yeah,
or sickness, or an illness that's been developing for 10, 15, 20 years. Then they've got tested. So you're looking at the results of sick people.
So yeah, okay, yeah, I'm with you.
So then, and I get this week in, week out, where somebody's got skin issues, gut issues, whatever it is. And I go, oh, have you done bloods? Oh yeah, I've done them with a doctor and everything's been normal. But that's because they're comparing your results to a sick population.
Yeah.
And like, I'll use testosterone as an example. So because testosterone in men is just slowly declining all the time. Like the average 20-year-old man today has the same level of testosterone as like a 60-odd-year-old did like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's rapidly declining. But instead of them saying to people, oh, your testosterone's low, they just go, oh, well, everyone's testosterone is within this range now. That's our new normal.
Right, got you, yeah.
So from like studies that they looked at to determine these optimal ranges, 24 to 34 is like the optimal for testosterone. I tend to kind of use 20 because once you start going below 20, you will see multiple signs of low testosterone.
Yeah.
But the doctors use a range of between like 8 and like 20 something.
Mm-hmm.
So if a man goes in whose testosterone is 14, which is like, you're going to get severe symptoms, whether that's the sexual function side of it or the motivation, energy, drive, weight gain, muscle loss, wherever, you're going to be experiencing multiple of those symptoms if you're around about 14.
Yeah.
But if you go in as a young man to the doctor and yours is 14, they're going to go, yeah, you're fine, you're just like everyone else.
Okay.
So it's shifting the view of looking at it from an optimal health view and going from there. Because, if you're just outside that perfect range, it's not like, oh my God, it's terrible. It's like, oh, let's keep an eye on that. But when you're being compared to people who are ultimately very sick and you're told you're fine or you're normal, it leaves you scratching your head thinking, well, I thought it was this, but everything's fine.
Yeah.
But that's really where the functional blood work stuff comes in. Is let's test as much as we can, for a reasonable cost, but then look at it from a what's perfect and kind of work from there.
Yeah.
Rather than going, let's wait until you've got a serious problem, then test you, then compare you to everyone else who's got serious problems and tell you you're fine.
Yeah.
You have your car checked once a year.
Yeah, it's an MOT essentially.
Yeah. But you can buy another car if your car breaks or blows up.
Yeah.
But like, we don't prioritize checking our body,
yeah,
as often. And we only get one body. If you only had one mobile phone for the rest of your life, how would you look after it?
Yeah, you take care of it, you wouldn't, that's the thing. If you put it in that perspective, it's with anything though, really, isn't it? It's like, whether it be a car, a phone, like if you've got that one thing forever, you're going to make sure it's like cared for and precious. And I actually got into this kind of conversation with someone yesterday about people who don't look after themselves. I struggle to understand why people don't want to look after themselves. I understand there's some people who've got sort of physical issues and with stuff with their mental health and struggle to get outside to do exercise and things like that. But I really do struggle with the whole, like you said, you've only got one, so why not look after it?
There's a lot in what you said there which we can touch on. A big part of it is just how we've been educated. And the thing is, like, our genes and our like DNA and our body hasn't really changed for like 10,000 years. But the things that we, especially like people like me and yourself, do now for health, the cold water, out in the sand and the sunlight, they weren't optional things to do when we were evolving. That was just life.
It was just the way it was.
It was just life. Anything to do with how we feel, think, or perform, I think comes down to this one umbrella term. And that's like, we're just living disconnected from what our body has evolved to expect. So like, think of a keyboard and a computer. What you press on that keyboard comes up on that screen. So the inputs you choose to do dictate what happens, in the system. And our bodies are no different. So the inputs we give it, food, water, air, clean air, like I was saying earlier about my other job, like the smells and fumes and like the artificial light, like all of these things that are inputs to our body influence the outputs we get from that, whether that's the energy, the ability to, move our bodies and all this stuff. And I really think that everything that we're dealing with as a society, as a species, in terms of our body and our health, is because we're living mismatched from what our body expects. People say the system's broken. It's not broken. It's exactly as it's designed, as this corporate overload world where it's just like, we're all here to make money. The further we detach from what our bodies expect, the less time we spend outside, the less time we spend eating good food, like all these things, the worse our body gets. But that's not because our bodies are broken. Like whether you've got anxiety, depression, diabetes, or anything, your body isn't broken, your mind isn't broken. It's doing the job exactly as it's meant to do. It's
just
adapting.
disconnect.
It's adapting to your current environment. And by environment, I mean like everything that's in your life, what you consume in terms of media and that as well. Like everything's putting inputs into the system. You get out what you put in. Especially when you put the financial pressure on it and everything else. We're just in this environment where it's not allowing us to live. Like, we're not thriving. We're just surviving. We're just plodding along.
Actually, one of my favorite sayings is the body knows what it wants, but the mind gets in the way. So your body, like when you're ill, when you're sick, when you run down, like especially when you get a cold, like your lymphatic glands, your nodes and stuff, like I always say to people, if someone says to me, I feel like I'm coming down with something, I'm like, press under your armpit, and if it's sore, you're coming down with something. But I always find that when we have those moments, our body is like, it wants that fresh air, it wants rest, it wants goodness, but the mind goes, I want chocolate on the sofa. Your brain is telling you that's what's going to feel good, but your body just wants the goodness in to be able to recover. So that's like one of my favorite things. Our body knows what it wants, but our minds get in the way, and there's always that conflict between them both. And I think it's more in people who are very disconnected from those and dysregulated. I think like ourselves, or I think to a certain standard that I've got that down. I'm pretty connected, so I know that even if my brain is like, go and get a bar of Galaxy because you're not feeling well, I'm like, no, I'm gonna make a soup because I know that's what I need. It's just not what my brain wants necessarily.
Yeah, and I think they call it interoception. It's your like ability to perceive what's happening within you. But I think that takes practice. So like you're saying about craving, like being outside or the grounding or going for a dip and stuff, you have to spend time doing those things for your body to realize, oh, this is what I actually want. And then once you've done that regularly, then when you don't feel good, then your brain's like, oh, I want to be doing that. But a lot of people haven't done a lot of those things. So they don't get that feeling of let's go and do this. The Netflix and the chocolate bar is way more appealing to them. But again, it's not their problem. It's not their choice. It's
society. It's been like
they've been programmed that way through school, work, and like a lot of people turn their nose up to these sort of topics, but like the artificial light and the EMFs, like we're always bombarded with all this stuff that's frazzling our body. So you can see why when, and with the artificial light thing comes like the screens and this quick dopamine and like all this stuff happening all the time instantly. TikTok, Instagram Reels, it's just this constant churn of inputs. And I've experienced this the last, the back end last year myself. It's like when shit hits the fan, metaphorically, whether that's emotionally, physically, or whatever, it's so easy now to get caught in that, chuck a TV on or Instagram or like shit food. Like,
I think as well, just going back to what you said about screens and things like that. Like I know back last year, you were going through a bit of a rough time. Like we spoke a lot about it, and you got into that cycle because I don't ever want people to think that people in the wellbeing industry. I've been open about it on my Instagram. Like I've really struggled. Like back last year, my mental health was awful, probably one of the worst it's been. But they actually then came to being the best it's ever been. And I know that you went through the phase, and I remember you saying that you'd been stuck in a rabbit hole just watching YouTube videos and like waking up early, which is great, but then spending all your time watching the videos, getting stuck into that. And then you'd go out for a walk and be like, oh, I feel really good now because you've like got out of it. But there's so many people, and then you've started to come back around, haven't you?
Yeah. And I think obviously a big thing for me was like I didn't have to get up and go to work anyway. So any days where I had to get up and do something, I was on it. But it was the days where
there's no accountability.
I should create some content, like I should build this thing or do this thing. I just get a bit lazy with it. But and like this is seems a bit mad for some people, but I know that you get it. It's having those conversations with yourself, and this actually ties back into what we were saying just now about like getting stuck in, like when you're ill or your sort of mental health might take a dip or something. We distract ourselves, whether it's like film, media, music, podcast, whatever it is. Even if it's something productive, we're really good at distracting ourselves.
Yeah.
And when you do that, like, you don't learn. So like for me, the big thing was asking myself, well, what were the things I was doing most often in my life when I was like the happiest? I know happy is transient.
Yeah.
It's different for different people, but like when I felt best, what were the things I was doing the most?
Yeah.
And like you can plot that on half of a piece of paper, and then, well, what are the things that I've stopped doing that I used to do all the time? And it's all the same things. When you feel that urge to go lie on a settee or binge watch this thing or wherever, well, what was I doing when I, like, audit yourself, what was I doing in my life when I felt the best?
Yeah.
So that's a massive one for me. When, especially going forward now, as soon as you start feeling a bit off, what have I stopped doing that I was doing?
Yeah. That's what I do. If I start to, or if I've had, if my mental health goes or something doesn't feel right, I'll sort of sit and check in. I'm like, right. So I'm like, have I seen anything on social media? What did I eat in the last 48 hours? Because obviously our digestive system takes a while to process stuff. I'm like, what is coming in the last 48 hours that might have done that? Right, hydration, have I drunk enough? Did I get outside? Did I exercise? And I try to go through that to work it out. And then if I'm still a bit unsure, then I'm like, right, okay, so let's start back at the start. Get some good food in you, go out for a walk, go down to the beach. Even if you don't fancy getting in the sea today, like, get down there and try and go back, see what it is, see if there's an answer, and then change it and start going forward. And I think that's where sometimes people get a bit lost, because I call it, and I've said this to a lot of my wellbeing clients, I call it a mental toolkit. And I also think this is really good if you're in a relationship with someone or you're starting to date someone and they're learning about you or you're learning about each other. It's like, what is your mental toolkit? So if they're having a bad day or vice versa, I think that it's really important in general and in relationships, whether it be a partner or family, and that person's having a bad day, like, learn what their mental toolkit is so you can help bring that to them, because it's sometimes so hard to harness the energy to be able to do those things, even though they're good. There's times where I've been feeling rough, and I know just getting into the sea feels impossible, but I know it's so good. And if I just had someone hearing me and gone, come on, let's go down, and gone with me, they don't even have to go in with me, but it's just like that little bit of a boost. But I think maybe that's what a lot of people struggle with, is they don't have or never been educated to, like, build that mental toolkit. We're just told, no, I'll wrap up, get hot chocolate, and you sit on the sofa and watch something nice, which is lovely.
There's a time and a place for that, right? Like,
yeah.
And I've experienced it myself. Like, back in last year, there is something to be said in sitting with how you feel and your pain, and not distracting yourself. But you haven't got to be going and doing all these fancy tools. Like, I spent 8 hours in bed some days at the back end last year. My head was cooked.
Yeah.
But I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
Because I was processing it, not just distracting from it. So there's a time and a place for both.
Yeah.
There's a few things I want to unpack in what you said there. One of them being bringing it back to the blood work, and this is a massive passion of mine, is like bridging that gap between mental and physical health. If I say mental health, you know what I mean. But it's just made up. That's just a word we've made up to communicate things. Health is mind, body, soul, spirit, like everything. But we've disconnected physical and mental. We've got all this PT, bodybuilding, coaching, calorie counting, summer body stuff over here. And then we've got the talk therapy, the counselling and all this stuff over here. It's one interconnected system.
Yeah.
I never thought that I was anxious or depressed or anything. I still, to this day, never put those labels on myself, but all through my teens, my early 20s, like, I was savage.
Yeah.
Very frustrated. People used to say I was angry, but I never felt angry. It just seemed that way because of my tone of my voice. The OCD was nuts. Like, it could be about anything. I could be going fishing on the weekend. Where am I going to go? What time am I going to go? What bait am I going to use? Like, what color is it going to be? Like, it'd just be wah, 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 all day.
Yeah.
So whatever was happening in my life at that time, it was savage, and I'd be so drained from it. My head was like a million miles an hour, but like I never thought I had an issue.
Yeah.
Tying back into what you were just saying about like the mental health stuff, the physical health stuff, and it works both ways with different people, right? Some people will gravitate towards one or the other, but when I started improving my physical health, so getting my sleep routine dialed in, my nutrition, and like my exercise, my movement, when I dialed those few things in, after like 6 months of sorting all like my lifestyle out, the basic stuff, before I knew anything about the blood work and all crazy gut health stuff, just the basics, the sleep, nutrition, and the movement. After a few months, I was like, I'd driven for like 4 or 5 hours without listening to anything. I got there and I was like, this is wild. Like, I couldn't even go to sleep, mind, without listening to something on the TV.
Yeah.
It was constant. And I realized that I'd accidentally just completely calmed down.
Yeah.
I was like, it was bad looking back on it from like my teens until like my mid-20s.
Yeah.
After this like 6 months of sorting my lifestyle out, it's like, this is mad. I'm on a completely different level now. But I think nutrition is such a fundamental part of it.
It's insane.
Because ultimately, if your body doesn't have the building blocks to do the jobs it needs to do, how can you expect it to work properly?
Yeah.
And the way I explain like vitamins and minerals is like, imagine you're building a wall, we're building a house with bricks. Your bricks are like your carbs, fats, and your proteins. But without the cement in between the bricks, it's just going to fall down. It ain't going to be very strong. And I see the vitamins and minerals and like all these little compounds we get from foods, apart from your carbs, fats, and proteins, I see them as like the glue that holds everything together. Because you can smash all the carbs, fats, and proteins you want. But if you're nutrient deficient, like nothing works properly.
Yeah.
It's so important. So I honestly think like if you're focusing on your mental health, nutrition has to be a massive part of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also get that if your mental health isn't in a very healthy state,
it's so hard
to focus and prioritize that stuff.
Yeah.
Like I get that.
Yeah.
And it swings and roundabouts. And like bringing back to the blood work, to find out nutrient deficiencies, like there's no better way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like most things in life, the beauty's in the basics. So everyone's always asking me about what can I take for my gut health and this and that and this and that. But until you've covered the basics, like your B vitamins, magnesium, vitamin D, all this stuff, which is so important for like almost every function of the body, you can't expect things to work properly.
Yeah.
Like if you put poor fuel in your car, it conks out. But yeah, we put poor fuel in our bodies and expect it to work perfectly.
Yeah. I think with like nutrients, vitamins, a lot of people have asked me, what would I recommend? And I say omegas, vitamin D, vitamin B. And the usual question I get back is which one? And this is where I understand why people don't go into it or get scared, because if you walk into Holland and Barrett, for example, this is nothing on Holland and Barrett, because I'm so glad that they're a company, because people can't get a source of vitamin. But you've got 30 different vitamin Ds, 20 B12s, and people are just like, and they've got different ratings, and this one is max effective, this one is the quickest one, this is chewable, and everyone's like, they obviously all do the same thing. There's a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily have the confidence to go in and say, I'm looking for XYZ, can you help me? Like, some people just want to go in, see one on the shelf and grab it. I know so many people like that, but there's just so many, and I think we get bombarded with it as well. Like, we know they're good for us, but it's like, which one?
So supplements is one of the main topics of conversation I have with people. It is a minefield, and it's an unregulated industry, but somebody might have spent hundreds and hundreds of pounds over the last couple of years on supplements and not really felt a difference. God, supplements are nonsense, they don't work. But it's like, are you taking the right supplement in the right quantities at the right time for the right reason?
And that's complex in itself.
Yeah, and that's where the blood work comes in, and working with somebody who like understands how much you need and which, like, the quality of them and stuff. And that's why I say to people, like, you can actually save money in the long run by paying someone like myself to look at your bloods and suggest supplements. Because if you're taking the right one at the right time, so for me, supplements come after food and lifestyle, yeah? Like food first, get as much as you can from what you're eating,
Yeah.
and then we'll use supplements to plug the gaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then even in that sense, I only see them as like a short-term solution. Nutrient deficiencies I see is like B complex, because our body just uses so much of them throughout the day, and they're water soluble, so we don't really store them. So we need a consistent intake of B vitamins, and they're used for like everything, especially like detoxification, actually using our carbs and fats for energy, like everything. But what you find is, and I think that this is by design to a degree, is a lot of supplements will like say, oh, take 1 capsule per day. But those amounts are based on the minimum someone needs to maintain levels. Like if you're deficient in, say, vitamin D and you're taking the stated amount, you're not taking enough to increase your levels.
Yeah.
Someone could take vitamin D for 2 years and go, oh, it hasn't done anything. But that's because they're not educated enough to take the right amounts for the right period of time.
Yeah.
So they think supplements are a waste of time or they don't work, but it's just, are you taking the right form in the right amount at the right times for the right reason? But that's why if I do ever do bloods or actually work with somebody long term, any supplements that I recommend, I will literally go in, find the ones that I trust, put them on like a link, and then just send to that person. They go add to basket, done.
Yeah.
If I say to you, right, you need B complex, and you type that in Google.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's just so much.
But again, they're a tool. Can we use them for as little as time as possible to get you back to enough that you can maintain through food and lifestyle? But we've been led to believe that like they're the be all and end all. But again, without blood work, it's just guesswork. So
that just reminds me of, maybe only like 2 years ago, I was like a walk-in vitamin, like whatever they're called, container. I take so many vitamins. I was on, see if I can remember them all. Vitamin C, multivitamin, zinc, B12, D. I was on biotin. I was on hair, skin and nails one. Oh God, what else was there? Magnesium, and there was another one. I'm sure there was another one. And I was like taking them all, spending a fortune, taking them all every single day. I actually can't afford to go and buy them all. So I just used what I had and sort of came off them. I literally don't think I changed. And I just remember like getting like an email from Holland and Barrett with all my points. And I was like, oh, I haven't actually taken anything for a couple of months and I don't feel any different. And it was really since then I dropped off all of them. The only thing I really take now is my omega, and I take collagen. But yeah, it was crazy how much I was taking. And then when I did actually stop, I was like, oh, there's actually not, it's so different.
There's also much more to be said as well. And this goes for food and supplements. It's not just what you put in your mouth. Like you are what you eat. Like you're not, because you need to break it down, digest it, absorb it, and actually transport it around the body for those nutrients to actually do their job.
Yeah.
So, B12 is a prime example. If your stomach health isn't very optimal, and almost every single person I work with isn't, stress, alcohol, drugs, processed food, also our lives, all these things just hammer our stomach. Because gut health spoken about a lot now, yeah?
Yeah.
But it's also almost like we forgot about the stomach. So when people talk about gut health, it's usually the small intestine and or large intestine. But the stomach is like the gateway to that.
Yeah.
And like I'll use B12 as an example. So B12 has to be transported through the small intestine to like towards the end of it to be absorbed, which is quite unique. Most other things are absorbed higher up. But for it to get there, it has to be sort of protected. So in a healthy stomach, the cells in the lining of the stomach, which like produce stomach acid and stuff, they produce these other things that help break down proteins and everything else. But one of these things it produces binds to B12 and like kind of protects it, so it can be transported along and then absorbed where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So if somebody has poor stomach health, low stomach acid, acid reflux, gastritis, or any of these things which are causing issues in the stomach, you're not absorbing almost any of the B12 you're taking.
Yeah.
So if you've got poor stomach health, you could take the highest B12 supplement ever.
It's not
And
gonna...
and that goes with proteins, fats, carbs, foods, anything you consume. It's about how it's being broken down, digested, and absorbed, not just what you put in your mouth. With the blood work though, like, it's not just about the numbers. I call it like the assessment triangle. So the blood work is one part of it, but unless you understand the person, like, they're just numbers.
Yeah.
You and your twin sister could have the same things, high or low, in blood work, which is rare, but just an example. But what's causing them in you could be completely different to what's influencing them in her. So it's like, these are the numbers for this person. That's why I've got that like 100-question massive health assessment thing. Because like, I could look at a number in a blood work and go, all right, that's too high. But then look at the questionnaire and go, all right, well, they tick that, so now that makes sense. Or they say that that's how they eat, or they've been doing this. So you combine the person and the numbers.
Yeah.
And like, I'll have like an hour conversation with people, and you use the three of them to determine, well, why is it potentially high or low? Because you or your twin sister could have a high number, but for two completely different reasons. So you take the numbers and like the symptoms and stuff like that. Like for like the fat, that digestion thing, if you see someone with really low triglycerides and then they're ticking on their sheet that, they have, certain type of stool, or, really tired after like high fat meals, it's like, well, this person's having issues digesting and absorbing fat.
Yeah.
But then back to the supplement thing, vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin. So if you're taking vitamin D without any fat, you're not really going to be absorbing it. So like, they say about 14 grams of fat you should really have when you take vitamin D. So if you've had like eggs or something for breakfast, take vitamin D, perfect.
Yeah.
Or take it with like a tablespoon of coconut oil. But if you're taking vitamin D on an empty stomach, some of it's going to get absorbed.
Yeah.
But not all of it. And that, again, it comes back to, are you taking the right thing at the right time? Not just aimlessly putting pound coins down your mouth.
Yeah. So the camera cut out. So my last question I left on was, if someone wants to get blood work done, where would they go to from there?
So the company I'm currently used is called Your Blood, and I have helped design the test for that one in terms of the markers that we want to get a best picture. But in terms of how to get it done, it's like super easy. Either I can order the test for somebody, or they can order it themselves online, just like a t-shirt or anything. And the kit with everything you need is turned up in the box, comes through your letterbox. And once you've placed the order, you'll get an email with a link to book your local clinic. So some people might be familiar with MediChecks. This Your Blood is built on the same system. So there's like registered, qualified clinics all over the UK that are built into this system. And I think when you go to buy the test, it'll ask you for your postcode, and it'll show you the 3 closest clinics. So once you'd ordered the test, you'll get a link to book at your local clinic. And then on that day, you just go there with the test kit, or you fill in all the forms and the bottles and stuff, get the blood drawn by the trained person, and then that kit just goes in a post box, and results are in 2 days. There is the option that if you know somebody, a friend or family or friend of a friend of a friend who's qualified to do it, you can get the blood test a bit cheaper without paying for the blood draw. And then if you know somebody who can do it, you can do it at home or with them, as long as they're qualified. But yeah, actually getting it done is pretty simple. You go to the clinic or go to somebody who can get it done, put it in a post box, and then 2 or 3 days later, get your results. And then on the back end of that, I think this is where the real value of getting your bloods done is having somebody to analyze it from that functional health perspective.
So that's when someone would, when they get the results, they would come to you, and then you would go through it with them.
Yeah, so either I can order the test for them and go through the entire process with them, or they can just go and get their own blood test, and then I can help them with the results. There's either way. Ideally, if I'm doing blood with somebody, I would like to work with them for 3-6 months minimum, because then you can tailor things and change things and keep on top of things. Just like any sort of PT coaching things, you have check-ins and adjustments. It's no different with this stuff. But financially, I know that's, for paying for the blood test and like 3 months worth of this really in-depth functional health coaching, it is a bit out of reach financially for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I have been doing a lot more one-off stuff. So whether I order the blood test or they get the blood test themselves first, I'll then do like a one-off analysis and recommendations. So I'll go through the health questionnaire form that they submit, like 100 questions, like really in-depth one. The blood test results, then I'd look at them all, write down what I think, any nutrition, lifestyle, supplement recommendations. And there's different options. There's like a really sort of in-depth, detailed one with like a massive 50-page document with like generic advice in there as well as the personalized stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's a bit more basic option where they're still going to get the same level of analysis on the bloods and stuff, just a bit more bullet pointy recommendations than like a massive bulked out plan.
Yeah.
So there's those one-off options. But again, I'd like to work with somebody for longer if possible, because you know what, you can adjust things.
Cool.
They're super easy to do.
So to finish off, is there anything that you want to cover? Because we're more than likely have to do more episodes for things like we want to talk about breath work, we want to talk about more about processed foods and gut health. But is there anything that you want to kind of finish on or discuss to finish off our episode?
Something we might have touched on earlier, but when we talk about investing in your health, whether that's coaching, yoga, PTing, whatever it is, we're trapped in this time for money model of value. And I think it's just because of the corporate world we're in. We go to work for X amount of hours, for X amount of pay. We're really stuck in this. We value something based on how much it costs for a period of time, whether that's income or spending. That's how we look at it. But when it comes to, you know, health, whether that's, you know, yoga, health coaching, blood testing, whatever, we have to look at it as an investment. Because, you know, like say someone's going to do a 3-month program with me, or how much does it cost? And I say, oh, it's this much. They're looking at it, oh, well, it costs this much for 3 months. But, you know, the way I think about my coaching, and I'm sure you're the same with yoga and stuff, the things you bring to people, you enlighten them with, and the things you teach these people, you want them to then go off and have these things as part of their lifelong
term. As a long term.
So I don't want to just people to think, oh, I'm going to work with this person for 3 months and then I'm like out on my own again. Because the things I do with somebody, even in a one-off, but especially a 3-month, I want that to be a positive springboard for the rest of their lives. Because if you invest now and improve your health, you know, as a 20, 30-year-old, or, you know, older or whatever, or younger, if you invest in your health now, those habits, like those things that you learn, those habits that you create, all these things start improving for you. It might have started in this 3-month block, but my goal of health, or my idea of health, is can you go to Penavan next weekend when you're 65 because your grandson or your son wants to go for a walk? Can you roll around and play around with your grandkids?
It's about longevity.
It's about that. Like, I'll help you start your health journey. Like, it's not a 3-month one and done. You might pay me for 3 months, but the things you learn in those 3 months are going to affect your life for the rest of your life, but also your kids, your grandkids. Like, you could change your family tree by investing in your health now. So it's not just for X amount for one yoga class or X amount for so many months of coaching. Because that's hopefully going to be part of your journey for the next 40, 50, 60 years. And that generational change thing is a massive part of it for me. Like I said, I work with so many people that have chronic like skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, and the digestive symptoms, the gas, the bloating, constipation, like IBS, all this type of stuff. Well, if us now as 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds start embodying this lifestyle and start learning this stuff, our kids might not have to go through the skin issues, the gut issues, the anxiety, the depression. So the money you spend on learning and growing and improving your health now,
investing in yourself,
not just for those weeks or that session or those few months. It could completely change the course of your family tree in terms of the health challenges your kids might not ever have to face. If you learn these things now, it's like a generational thing. You get your car checked out once a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Why not, get your body checked out once a year and say you only got one of them?
Thanks for being my guest.
Love it.
Do another one soon.
Another 10.
Another 10.